Shanti Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om Tat Sat. So we have finished our fourth chapter, and now we are entering into the fifth chapter. And in this chapter, we will be doing what is called Vakyartha Vichara. What is the Mahavakyas and what is the meaning of these Mahavakyas? We are going to discuss this. But one has to give a context. Why suddenly you have to jump from one particular area to another? What is the provocation? Why do you want to do it? Isn't it? That's a very valid question. And that is given in the introduction in this particular chapter in the beginning. In the last chapter, we did Dvaita Viveka Prakarana. First, we did Tattva Viveka Prakarana. Then we did Panchakosha Viveka Prakarana. Then we did Mahabhuta Viveka Prakarana. Then we did Dvaita Viveka Prakarana. If you look at Tattva Viveka, the Panchakosha and the Mahabhuta, and then we discussed Dvaita Viveka, where we were discussing we ourselves as units of consciousness and the reality around us, the relationship between Jiva and Jagat, that we discussed. And then we were told and explained in beautiful, very elaborate way that Ishvara Srishti, what is a given, that's not our enemy. That is not going to obstruct our ascension in spiritual terms. Brahma Satya Jagana Mithya doesn't and should not tempt us to treat the surrounding reality as our enemy, because that is also sadhaka. That is the essential means through which we have to do our sadhana and go to the next level. So that is not our enemy. What is our enemy is our own mental projection of it. There lies the problem. Otherwise, there is no problem. The essential problem lies in our own consciousness. Therefore, now the advice in the fourth chapter was that you try to distinguish between the given, the larger context in which you find yourself. This Western philosopher Heidegger, he sort of always advised that you have to find yourself in a context, and you must accept the fact that you have been thrown into this reality. That is unavoidable. Then only can you meditate on who you are and how you have to spiritually reconstitute your understanding, your relationship. Otherwise, we are stuck. So, first, we have to accept there's a certain conditionality when we are born here, and there are certain things we cannot change. So, the spiritual training which Vedanta gives us is that first do proper viveka. It is not about meditating only like 7-day courses. You can go and sit somewhere and pay some money, do a retreat. Like for example, now there is this yoga village next to, I don't want to take any names, but the famous yoga village which you have, and university and medical college, everything close to Haridwar, you can go. And recently a couple just told me that we went there for a week. How much? 100,000 rupees for 7 days. 105,000 rupees for 7 days. There must be additional payments for other things, but the 7 days, what is this? It's a wellness program. Do you become well? Vedanta takes you to the other extreme. So it's not about breathing. It's not about silencing your mind like in Vipassanas. It's not about yoga camps and doing breathing. It's not meditation camps where maybe you have food, and this is a continuous process. It's here and now. And it starts with Viveka, discrimination. That is why Vedanta is different from all other methods, and it doesn't appeal to everyone. It only appeals to people who are a little intellectually open. Others will not enjoy it. They would rather be happy going and dancing and taking the holy name, or organizing big pujas, or they would be happy going and doing some yoga and meditation. So, this is for a particular set of beasts who, because of their own purva punya or sadhana or whatever, are slightly meditative or contemplative in nature. First, you have to accept it. And if you are taking interest, it's largely because You must be contemplative in nature, number one. Number two, this particular fifth chapter we are doing, which is called Mahavakya Viveka Prakarana, we are going to meditate on what are the Mahavakyas. We would go into all that. The first trick here is that in the last chapter, we had a long discussion on what is Ishvara Srishti and what is Jiva Dvaita or Jiva Srishti. The fundamental external contours of a reality may remain the same, but that bhogyatakara, because of our aspirations, we attribute something to it. The same college, the people who are staff, support staff, they go there to study? No. They have anything to do with the knowledge system? No. They are working in a university. They are going there for bread and butter. The security guard who goes to a university is going for bread and butter. The student who goes wants to learn. The professor who goes wants to do research. So people are there for different purposes. So that institution has a different constitution in their minds, and that constitution decides how they relate to it and what benefit or losses they're going to make going there. No, similarly, we are in this samsara, and this chapter trained us how to nurture in us a bit of detachment of vairagya by doing an analysis or viveka or vivechana or vichara that this is Ishvara Srishti and Jiva Srishti is different, and this jiva srishti is dhimayakara. It's basically projection of the mind. And here again you have sastriya, you have asastriya. Ishvara srishti, not our enemy, it's neutral, it's actually helpful. It's mithya, it's not ultimately real. It is adhyasita on that Brahman. This is a projection of the Brahman. And Jiva Srishti is a projection of our own ignorance, our own vasanas, our own encrypted data which is there in us, which we cannot easily format. Now, the Jiva Srishti Shastriya means that we are doing this. It's also Dvaita, some duality. We are doing this satsang. But this is Shastriya because essentially using it for spiritual ascension. Asastriya is whatever is moved through raga, dvesha, attraction, aversion. And through this viveka, we would develop some vairagya for the jiva srishti. That whatever is asastriya dvaita, first try to dissociate, then sastriya dvaita also you will dissociate once you have atmajnana, and the Ishvara srishti will become anyway superfluous. Badhitya vritya, it will appear. Like the sky appears blue, but you don't accept it is blue. The stick looks bent when you immerse it in water, but you know it's a straight line. Because of refraction, it looks bent. So, with this newfound wisdom, you can still engage with samsara. Is it good enough? Towards the end of the fourth chapter, he says that is not all. Through this vairagya, when you meditate, that jivan mukti state is a state of being completely quiet without any more having any distraction, because you're firmly established in that pure consciousness, and brahmavit brahmaiva bhavati. So when a person who is liberated as jivan mukta is being referred to as brahmavit, that is upacharika. He's not a brahmagyani. There is no difference anymore between him and brahman, because brahman is not an object. It's like a person with 1,000 hands, because purusha sukta says this. None of these, because he is now no more trapped in a mode of consciousness which you can still call human. He's in that pure consciousness without any name and form. It's become too pure to have any name and form, to be colored by sanskaras, vasanas, etc. Verily Brahman is referred to as that is verily Brahman. Now, this chapter now takes it one step forward. Vairagya we got because we had a very good analysis in the chapter 4, and all that we have done till now. But Vairagya in itself, without mumukshitva, is not enough. Vivek Chodamani also says this, that you can have Vairagya, but if you don't have a strong desire for liberation, the detachment can also be because of depression, isn't it? Vishya vinivartante niraharasya dehinah. If you don't take food, your mind will stop getting distracted, it will become very quiet. But is that freedom? Is that freedom from the pulls and pushes of whatever we experience in everyday life? That's very temporary. Like yoga is tatkalika for a while. So after vairagya, Tattvabodha requires a bit of analysis of what? The real insight into how our minds become silent through spiritual practices. But what is the fundamental foundation for that silence? What is the foundation on which we'll establish ourselves? This is that Vastu Tantra. It is that philosophical grounding. There is no fear. That Nishchayatmika Buddhi, Bhagavan says, not Arjuna. You have to have that Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. It's not about business. It's about having Nishchaya, not having any doubt anymore. You need to have the real understanding about who am I, what is your Swarup, and that you are not different from me. That is all one pure consciousness. Now, coming to this word Mahavakya, because we are doing one Vedanta Prakarana Grantha, we are not reading all the Upanishads. In fact, this text prepares the mind for now going into different Upanishads and looking at Shankara Bhashya and meditating on each and every verse to enrich our understanding. But this is just a beginning thing. It's like a crash course in Vedanta. So, in that crash course, what we are given to understand, before we know everything, you just want a summary of it. Before examinations, what do the student want? They want these small digests which are available. Now there are YouTube, so you have hundreds and hundreds of digests people are all using, isn't it? So you want similarly, you want some kind of a digest, and that digest is this set of 4 sentences. These are called Mahavakyas. Why there are so many Vakyas? Why are you calling them Mahavakya? Because these are very important sentences which instantly can liberate you from your, the jail, the individually self-imposed jail of ignorance, or wherever we are caught up in false understanding of the reality around us. They are called Mahavakyas. And this Vivechana, because then we will graduate to other chapters. Slowly it will expand. But it is just summarizing in a tablet form whole of Upanishads in 4 statements. And what does it mean? That Jiva Brahmaiva Naparaha, that Jiva and Brahma Ekatva, all Jat Path, caste and creed and race and religion and all that. Vyavaharika is fine. There is not an issue. Fine. You are happy with it. Go ahead with it. But ultimately, you can do all this knowing that ultimately these distinctions are self assumed, self imposed. We had a terrible war. A lot of people got killed. But these distinctions, these enmities, doesn't mean that you'll allow somebody to come and attack you. No. Would there be still wars? Yeah, there'll be still wars after Vedanta if there is injustice, and people will respond, and this will go on as human nature. That's why Vedas don't mention anything about it, no? Because you want to play cricket, Vedas don't say anything about it. That's not their responsibility to tell you how to play cricket. Ragatah praktah. It's because of your own inclination, a lot of things are there. And there is no discussion in the Shastras as to whether and how to get into this game, how to win. No, that's not their responsibility. We are now returning to the roots of all that we call our life world, or whatever we call is our worldview. The foundation is that set of 4 Mahavakyas. Therefore, now let's go sentence. That introduction is very important. Jigyasor Vairagya Utpadana Dhiya. You wanted to have Vairagya, detachment. Why? You wanted to rescue yourself from a sense of being trapped in the sansara. Vistarina prapanchitam ishvara srishtasya jagataha mithyatvam. That this whole material world around us is phenomenally real. Mithya is what? Whatever is Trikala Vadhyatva. Trikala Avadhyatva is not there. Trikala Vadhyatva is there means Mithya. Yeah. So Trikala Abhadya, it cannot be sublated, negated in any state. That is Satya. It means Nitya basically. So Sansara is Mithya because it's Anitya. Kriya Karaka Phalabhisandhi Prayuktasya Karma Phala Karma Kalapasya Anitya Phala Hetutvena Heyatvam Cha. What else we discussed in the last chapter? Kriya Karaka Phalabhisandhi. Kriya is what you want to do. Karaka is the agency. Phalabhisandhi, why you want to do it. Prayuktasya, whatever is happening in samsara because of kriya, there is some movement, karaka, some agency, and there is a purpose, there is a motivation behind. Prayuktasya, karma kalapasya, and all these things that happens, so many things we try to attempt in life. Anitya phala all these anushthanas and all the things that we do doesn't give us niratisaya ananda. They will always give you temporary sense of happiness, heyatvam. Therefore, kriya heyatvam. Whatever you want to do, karma will not liberate, give you some temporary, sedatives or ameliorative experiences, but will not give you liberation. Jivatma Brahma Vedasya Sankshipato Gyapita. And in the last chapter, we also explained to you Jiva and that Brahma, both are one only. Jivatma Brahma Avedasya Sankshepataha. In summary, we did not spend much time. Therefore, we are doing it now. Vishesataha Padartha Sodhanam Antara. However, what is this Tattvamasi? That padartha, wherever you heard that Brahma or Jiva or anything, unless you are able to meditate a little more on it, vairagya matrina samyak tattvabodha na uditi. Samyak tattvabodha, some understanding we can have. We will not have a very integral, comprehensive understanding about who we are, why we are here, why we are suffering. So that's for samyak tattva bodha na udeti. It doesn't arise in us only because we are vairagi. Just because a person gets married, is he happy? No. Those of you who are married, you know how much hard work you have to do, isn't it? Raise children, have a house, take care of the wife, relations, isn't it? Somebody joins a job, does he go to the top post? No. So only vairagya, that is the stepping stone, that doesn't give you everything. Sat Padartha Swarupa Nirupakani. Therefore, what is that Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma? What is that Sat? What is that existence, which is the foundation, substratum of everything? Sakala Vedartha Sara Sangraha Rupakani. And these Mahavakyas are important. Why? Because they are Sakala Vedartha Sara Sangraha. They are called Sangraha Vakyas. You summarize everything and you have one sentence. In our Jnana Parampara, we call them Sangraha Vakyas. Okay, so you have a lot of debate, but one or two sentences that one needs to, the gist of it. So, Sakala Vedartha Sara Sangraha. There is first thing Veda, then Veda Artha, Tattvarya, then Sara, what is the summary of it, then Sangraha Vakya. Within just 3-4 sentences, everything is mentioned. Rupakani Mahavakyani Avasyam Vakyani. So it's very important that we need to discuss, reflect, and analyze these Mahavakyas. Vidyateja prasaktihi swarupa sodhanaya. And therefore, these are very important. There is prasakti, it's prasangika, it's very contextual. There is a prayojana, it's very important. There is a contextuality to it because we are interested in liberation. Ekam eva advitiyam Brahma. Look at several such Upanishadic insights which are there in different Upanishads. And we are going to limit our focus only on the Mahavakyas, 4 sentences. Ekam eva advitiyam Brahma, Chandogya Upanishad. There is only one Brahman. Neha nanasti kinchana. You may be interested in Ganesh ji or Hanuman ji. Some people go to Sai Baba ji. It's fine. Jesus, Allah, not a problem. But remember, the fundamental ultimate reality is one. Atmava idam agra asit. Aitiri Upanishad. Then in Chandogya also Sadeva Somya idam agra asit. That oneness is always emphasized. Ityadi Shrutivihi, by these Shruti sentences, Pratipaditasya, whatever has been substantiated, explained. Sajatya Vijatya Swagata Veda Rahitasya Nirupadhikasya. Now there's a beautiful adjective always given for Suddha Brahma. One is Sopadhika Brahma, Maya Upahita Chanya. With this Maya cap, the crown of Maya, Suddha Brahma becomes Ishvara. Ishvara has Ishitvam. He becomes a boss. He becomes the Prabhu. But Suddha Brahma is not Prabhu. He's not follower. He's not the leader. He's not the boss. He isn't anything because no Namarupa sort of applies there. Yeah. Like, for example, in quantum physics, they said that there was this quantum vacuum and then there was some bit of excitement and then that becomes a foundational particle. So it's all essentially wave reality or energy, and then it assumes particle nature when you look at it. So it will appear. This whole sansara is just a projection, it's just a manifestation. So a Vyakrita has become Vyakrita. Then what is mentioning? Ultimately, Sajatya, Vijatya, Swagata Veda Rahitasya. And we have discussed that earlier. What is Sajatya? Sajatya is like one pen and different from another pen. Sajatya Veda belong to one class, yet Vyakti Vishesataha, they are different from one another. There are five guys. Each guy is a different person. Sajatya. Vijatya Veda, there's a guy and a girl. There's a guy and a little boy. There's a Vijatya Veda because they're different to different class of things. Why we are discussing all this about Brahman? Because there are no two Brahmans, means there is no Sajatya Veda. There is, somebody might say that Brahma and Jagat both are real. No, because there is no Vijatya Veda. So some people believe Brahma Satya, Jagat Satya, including the great Sri Aurobindo, because they have a different way of looking at it. They don't accept Sankara's Mayavada. But if you go deep into modern physics, you go into deep into Buddhism, they are all non-dualists in the perfect sense. So I personally think, okay, there is a particular, so far sadhana kala is concerned, it's much better to follow what Sri Aurobindo says or Ramanujacharya says, because it's easy to understand. The mind finds it comfortable to accept. But the ultimate reality, if you're looking at what is the fundamental thing beyond all the theories that you do, then again he comes into the front. Who? Acharya Sankara. You look at all the Western philosophers doing modern physics, quantum physics, they keep sort of get, they keep getting surprised by these insights in the Upanishads. Now coming back here, Vijatya Veda is not there. That Sansara is Mithya, Brahma is Satya, and they are different. No, that difference isn't. Vijatya Veda, right? And then Swagata Veda, hand and body, whole and parts. Some people imagine Brahman and we are like tiny parts, Karna Brahmas. The Vaishnava, including Ramanuja. So Anga Angi Bhava. Brahman is Anga, Angi, and we are Anga. For example, in Balhavacharya and all, they will say different devatas are like tiny parts of it's like great tree, has a lot of branches, and you give water in any branch, it percolates down to the root. You give water in the root, it sort of nourishes all the branches and leaves. So go to Lord Krishna. Now, the problem with these kind of very strict interpretations, unlike Vedanta, which is very open ended, is that once you fix your focus on one name and form, there is fight. That's what starts. There is fundamentalism start from there. One name and form. It could be Jesus, it could be Allah, it could be Krishna, it could be Ram, it could be Shiva. Fight starts. But if you look at non-dualist Buddhism or non-dualist Vedanta, they are not stuck with name and form. They're going to the pure thing. Of course, they don't have concept of Atma, not a problem. They talk about Vijnana, fine. Wherever you want to go. But they do talk about Ala Vigyan. They do talk about Buddha nature. It's not that because from Sunya, I've discussed that earlier, they are essentially referring to Anirvachanya. They are not saying Sunya means absence. But anyway, we'll keep that for another day. Coming here, Sajatya, Vijatya, Swagata Veda. So Brahman, whole and parts, denied. Nirupadhikasya, though no upadhi. Let me just explain this word upadhi. It will keep coming again and again. Upadhi is a particular attribution which distinguishes A from B, where this upadhi and A are not linked organically. What do I mean by that? Upadhi is like, for example, you have a crystal and you bring a red rose close to it, it looks red. Now, this redness is upadhi because the redness is not linked to the crystal. You remove the flower, it again looks white. Then bring a green flower, it looks green. That is the upadhi. So upadhika. So Brahman with upadhis can become Ishvara, can become Jiva, can become Devata. We'll discuss all that. So it's like pure consciousness assuming different names and forms. Easy to understand if we just apply our minds a little. So he's saying Nirupadhikasya kasyachid abhyakta vastunaha sadabhavaha pratipaditaha. So that abhyakta means is not manifest, is unmanifest, but always evident. Remember, that's why abhyakta. Because first thing it says avang manasho gochara, therefore avyakta, but manasa eva anudarshavyam. at end of the day, you can only meditate on it using that Vijnanamaya kosha that we have, and then further proceed. And slowly the vritti will get down, it'll get nullified. And then, like in Orissa, there is some Kataka Renu, you remember Bengal, Orissa, during river water which villagers used to use, it used to be muddy, so there are certain seeds. And you rub it on a piece of stone, and then you put it in water, and in course of time what happens is it helps to desiccate all these sand particles or clay particles in water. Water becomes clean, but the Kataka Renu also vanishes. Similarly, these vritti jnana, we use the mind to drop the mind, as they say in Buddhism and different other new age non-dualist philosophies. तथा एव स एतम एव सीमानं विदार्य एतया द्वारा प्रापद्यत. Aitiri Upanishad 1:3-12 is mentioning. Actually, it's 3:12. Iti shruto shruyate sopadhika anya iva atma yo vamadevadivir anudinam upasyate atma iti. Now, we will go to that Aitiri Upanishad and I'll quickly try to touch upon that particular sentence, because I could immediately jump, but let me just finish the introduction. Then I'll go to, in Aitiri Upanishad, what happens is there is a discussion between different mumukhus, different monks, and they are asking, Ko so Atma, what is that Atma, which people like Bhamadeva used to meditate on? So Upadhika, because meditation requires some kind of a Upadhi. Nirupadhika Brahman, you cannot meditate on it. You can do Vichara. And the Vichara, the whole process will also get dropped after some time. Remember, Jnana Brahma and Dheya Brahma. Dheya Brahma is Upasya Brahma. Yeah, all kinds of upasanas are there in different Upanishads. But Jnana Brahma is Vicharya. Therefore, he's saying, Bhamadeva Devir Anudivanam Upasyate Atmeti. Tehi Upasasya ko ayam Atma. They used to do upasana of this Brahman, but who is he? Atma Koha. What is this Atma? King Swarupaha. What is the Swarupa? What are the attributes? Does it have any attributes? What is the Swarupa of this Atma? Sopadhika uta nirupadhika. Does it have any adjuncts? Does it have any upadhi, or does it have any label, or is it without a label? Iti atmanaha Vishesa Swarupam Avasyam Vicharaniyam. So, what is the pure Swarupa Atma? It's important to meditate on it, means analyze. Anyacha, and again, Atmanaha Asmad Pratyaya Gotaratvat. You see, Sankaracharya says beautifully, what is Atma Anatma? Whatever you refer to as I, Asmat Pratyaya, Aham. Now, Aham is not Ahankara, let's not confuse. Aham means you're returning to yourself. Now, for example, think about a little child, and Shankaracharya made a very powerful statement long before Descartes appeared on the scene in the West with his meditations, Cartesian logic. I think, therefore I am. He says, even if you little child, you ask, do you exist? He says, yes, I am there. How do you know you're there? What is the proof? He says, I'm there. What do you mean by what is the proof? Atmanaha swata siddhatvat. You don't need to prove you are. You are there. That is the proof. You must be reading in the newspapers once in a while some funny news articles where the bank staff or the treasury staff refuse pension, asking for proof of his being still alive. And then one old guy went to the bank and said, I need my pension. He said, but every year you have to renew your proof of living. He says, I'm physically standing in front of you. Yeah, but this we need some paper proof. That's what is bureaucracy all about. Actually, Atma doesn't require any proof. It's self-evident. Therefore, he's saying, Anyacha Atmana Asmat Pratyaya Grotaratvat. Asmat means I. Pratyaya Gocharatvat. Dvividha Kotim Arohati Tad Vicharana Tad Vicharana Tad Vicharana Aritihi. Okay. Now there are different ways. Now in Aitiri Upanishad, I will go there slowly. There are two points where consciousness enters into us. There is one is that the toes, yeah, the propada, the beginning of our feet and the toes, and then it enters through the head. Now this one is that consciousness part. The other one, that it becomes different indriyas, yeah. But then there is a dialogue. The instruments through which we know and we do things cannot be the boss. Like a broom is not grihaswami, Sankaracharya explains. So there must be something by which all these indriyas are doing their work. We see, okay? We see. I see, okay? If consciousness isn't there, can I see? There's a something which is a presiding reality, which sort of decides whatever we see or how we see, why we see everything, right? There's some consciousness which rules over all this. And then, of course, you have these karmendriyas and gyanendriyas. You have the mind, you have the buddhi. But remember, beyond all that, there is the Sakshi Chaitanya that we have done it in the Panchakosha Vivek already. Therefore, that is what is being referred to as Pragyanam Brahma in that Mahavakya. And he's saying, Chaitanya Atma ko aham pratyayo anekatha avivyajyate. Like there are different ways in which that aham pratyaya appears. How? He's giving examples. Stuloham, aham pashyami, I'm very fat. Stuloham, krishoham, I'm fat, I'm thin. Aham pashyami, I'm seeing. Look, different ways in which this asmat pratyaya is appearing. When you say I'm fat or I'm thin, I'm old, I'm ill, I'm depressed, what are you referring to? There is tadatmya. You are referring to your physical being or you are referring to your mental being or whatever. Then you're saying I am seeing, then you are referring to one of your gyanendriyas and its functionality, and where you become the agent. You are seeing, you are the bhokta, right? And also you are the karta, you are seeing. Aham smarami, where you are not taking help of the external gyanendriya, sense organs. Because when you are memorizing, when you are remembering, if you remember something, sometimes, it's a very interesting experience. You may have passed through it. You are in your conscious state, you are thinking about it, and then you had seen a certain dream about a certain location, and that memory is still stored in your subconscious. Yeah, these are beautiful things in Drishti Shrishtivada. In Yoga Vasisha, there's a discussion about it. So just imagine that, let's imagine that you are going to the Shiva temple, which is this one Shiva temple. You have a moment of deja vu, you have a feeling of deja vu. You know how it happens? In your dream, before maybe your school examination, you had visited a very isolated temple where you had a divine interaction. Just, I'm presuming, okay? And there was some similarity, but that temple doesn't exist. That you had seen your dream, making use of a lot of sensory data which is stored in your mind. In the dream, you had visited a temple and you had a certain transcendental experience. Today, you are visiting another Shiva temple. It reminds you of the Shiva temple which you had visited in your dream. And when you are going there, what reality are you seeing? You are seeing a physical reality, but that reality, that experience is getting intermixed, kind of mixed up with a very subjective experience which happened without the aid of any external reality of substance, because you saw that in your dreams. Therefore, your experience is a very complex subjective experience. Aham smarami. External reality has a very weak role in it. It's not very important here. Therefore, three aspects of our consciousness are kind of mentioned here. Iti pratiti valat ataha prasaktir vidyate. Therefore, it's very relevant. What is this? Ko ayam atma iti vayam upasmahe. So it's actually the third chapter. You can also call it the fifth chapter because that is Panchamakhanda. He's saying, so what is that Atma? Iti vicharaniya. So this is what should be. Ko ayam atma iti vayam upasmahe. Which atma do we meditate on? Evam vicharaniye vishaye. And when we meditate like this, sansaya kotim astite, there is some doubt is crops up in your consciousness. Padartha sodhanam antara. Then if you do not meditate on that Atma Tattva, what is it? And how will you meditate on Atma Tattva? Return to Upanishads. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's already there. You know, unlike in the West, we have something called Shavada Pramana. We have six pramanas to knowing in epistemology. One is Pratyaksha, which is direct sense perception. Anumana is inference, the Aristotelian syllogisms. You have a premise, you have a reason as to why, and then you have a certain promise, and then you're establishing it, concluding it. So they have deductive logic, they have inductive logic, we have Anumana. Upamana is Sadrishya Jnana. Arthapati is Anyatha Anuvapatya. Like, for example, somebody doesn't eat, somebody doesn't study at all, but he scores very high in the examinations. Somebody has a very low salary, but he lives a very affluent life. That means he has some other source of income. That is Arthapati Pramana. And then there is something called Anubalavdi. So if something is there, you would see, but you don't see it, so you have Abhava But the most important here is Sabda Pramana, or called what is called verbal testimony is also one ground for proof, because they believe that you cannot use pratyaksha and anumana to have awareness of the whole world for lack of time. You just have one lifetime. Much of us, we started our mathematics and physics not by proving anything to ourselves. We had verbal testimony. And here the Vedas is a text without an author. It's an authorless text. And that is valid because it's Aptavakya. There was no personal agenda behind this sentence, and that's why we give supreme importance to this Sabda Pramana. There's a lot of debates even in the West, but they all accept, because a lot of great philosophers and mathematicians, they started with a few axioms, isn't it? They were not being able to prove it. Much later were they proved. Many people started with certain axioms, like Broughton Russell proved a lot of things which were ideally just accepted as axioms. Later on, they were proved, isn't it, by other mathematicians. Now he's saying, now let's move forward. Prarabdhe Panchama Mahavakya Prakaranam. So therefore, now Vedosu Upalabhyamanehi Mahavakyehi. Let's break this. In the Vedas, each Veda has one Mahavakya. They have picked up one sentence to summarize the whole Veda. Vakya hi yat nishchitam atmaswarupa. And what is that atmaswarupa which is finally ascertained through that Mahavakya? Tad vachikashya. So in other words, if vakshatum ichaya, you have the icha, aspiration to explain it. What do you do now? Prarabhyate, you are starting Panchamam Mahavakya Prakaranam. So this is the long introduction to this beautiful, short, and very important chapter. Visishtartha bodhakataya tad uchyate tad vakyam. What is a vakya? Let me tell you, many of you are academics. We have our own, in our knowledge tradition, something called hermeneutics. Hermeneutics is how to interpret texts. Hermeneutics, a word, has a lot to do with biblical studies, but they were not aware of it, and many of them don't even recognize. But we had a very sophisticated philosophy about language and meaning. How do sentences hold any meaning for us? How do you make sense of any sentence? Is it through padartha bodha? Then you have vakyartha bodha. That is one school of thought. Then you have the famous Bhartrihari, the Spotavada. He says, no, the Vakyas also spot us, and they give you independent meaning, because they're talking about Savada Brahma. And they have this own school of thought, very sophisticated. Of course, this Shankaracharya and Kumari Lavhatta, all these people will go through. And then there is what is called Avihita Anvaya. That means you have a sentence, there is a word, there is some reference to it, and together these words you hold, and then you make sense of the whole sentence. Vakyartha bodha. Yeah, that's what they're saying. But there are certain other people, Anita Vidana, you have the Prabhakara Mata. So there are sophisticated theories, and how to interpret a text. We have our own set of rules, which ideally should be taught in the universities in our knowledge tradition. How to make sense. And there is a famous book called Vakyapadya by Bhartrihari who discusses this, his own Spota theory. But at the same time, we have a lot of books, yeah, where how to make sense of literature, how to interpret text. There's a lot of science. I'm not getting into it, but very simple. Visishtartha bodhagataya taduchyate tad vakyam. What is a vakya? Visishtartha bodhagataya. In order to explain some visishtartha, specific, important meaning, which is kind of, in Western philosophy, there's something called sign and signified. You have the French structuralists who use it, and Saussure, who sort of brought these concepts. But nobody actually mentions that Saussure actually was a professor of Sanskrit in Switzerland whole of his life. He picked up many of his key ideas from Paninian grammar and Sanskrit language, but never acknowledged. Fine, not a problem. But people know there was no linguistics before they got introduced to Sanskrit, and then suddenly, of course, they have gone ahead. That is the greatness of the Western civilization, that they work very hard and in detail on everything. We had great insights, but we did not proceed with expanding on those insights, which is now required. Mahacha tadvakyam cha Mahavakyam. What is a Mahavakya? Mahacha tadvakyam. It's a very important sentence, Mahavakya. And there is actually, this is a printing error here, and I checked, and there is this Panini Sutra 6.346, which says, An Mahataha Samanadhikarana Jatiya Yoho. So if you have, the gloss on this is Mahataha Akaro Antadeshaha. You have this Maha, you see Mahavakyam. So Mahataha Akaro Antadeshaha. Maha, you make it Maha. Sya Samanadhikaranye Uttarapade Jatiye Chapare. So if there is a Jati Vachaka thing or whatever succeeding Mahat, then you say Mahat, Mahabrahma, Mahatchaso Brahma, Mahatchaso Vakya, Mahavakya, Mahabrahma, Mahadeva, right? So among the gods, he is the best, the superior. So Mahadeva. Similarly, you have Mahavakya. Samanidhikaranye kim Mahatah Seva, Mahat Seva. Mahatah Seva, Mahat Seva. Why don't you have Mahaseva? No, because we are not having that jati complication coming or succeeding it. Therefore, this is that particular grammar rule which is being applied in order to create this word Mahavakya. That much is being converted by this, but it's a printing error. Therefore, it doesn't make sense. It should be an mahat ityaditvam. It should be like that. But anyway, sarvesang brahma vidya pratipadakanam vakyanam madhe suvyaktam. And these Mahavakyas are there are so many these important sentences in the Upanishads which give us certain insights into what is the Swarupa of Brahman. But these Mahavakyas are very special. Why? Suvyaktam, very well they capture the intent. Susukshmam, very few words. Sarva Vedanta Artha Saravhuta, all the Upanishads, the summary of it, Brahmatmekya Rupartha Bodhagatwad, and then Brahma and Atma, the Paramatma and the Jiva, the Chaitanya is Eka Eva. Etesam Mahatvam. Therefore, they are called. What is the Mahatva of the Mahavakya? He's explained. They are Suvyakta, Susukshma, Sarva Vedanta, Artha Saravhuta, Brahmatmekya Rupa, Artha Vodhakata. Beautifully, isn't it? If you break it. Sarva Vedanta, Vedanamanta Vedanta, that is the insights in the Upanishad. Saravhuta, the heart of the matter. Brahma, what is the heart of the matter? Jiva Brahmeva Naparaha. Jiva and Brahman, there is no distinction. And Rupa Arthavodhaka, that is what is conveying, that's why it's called, that is the greatness of these sentences. Yadava, Atyantika Nishriyasa Prapti Pradarsanat. And then there is another important, why is it so special? Why is it, what is so mahan about it? Atyantika Nishriyasa. Because all other greatness that we achieve, we go to Swarga or Brahmaloka, A Brahma Vibhuna Loka Punara Vartinu, we have to come back wherever you go, right? But there's one place where you go, you don't have to come back, and that place is not different from where you are right now. It's not the body, it's the pure consciousness. So they talk about it's here and now. It's not about having a tour program to go to Swarga or anywhere. It's here and now means not in this body and mind, but beyond this body and mind, the pure consciousness, which is all pervading. If we lose identification with this body and mind, then we will be that consciousness. Very easy to mention, and let's confess, very difficult to realize. Yadva anyehi dukhenapi labdhum asakya tha. And there are other anyehi means anya prakarehi. You can do meditation, you can go to satsang, you can do bhakti dance and other things. Dukhenapi labdhum, and lot of prayas you do. Asakya arthasya, very difficult to get that particular secret. Mumukshu anugrahartam, in order to benefit. It's for out of compassion and empathy and sympathy for these mumukyus. Vedantarthasya sukhena aviskaranat. And very easily they are going to tell you what the Brahman is. It's like a school student who just, or a little child, one of your students who is 5 or 6 or 8 years of age. Papa, what is this nonsense they are wasting, or Dada or Nana, whatever? Please explain, what is this Brahman? Can you tell me? No, no, no long speeches. One sentence you have to give me. Can you do that? He's saying this is why it's so important. Sukhena aviskaranat yadava yat nishchaya jnanam alavamana. That nishchaya jnana, which is very difficult to get. Astastir nachiketa prabhrityaha jigyasavaha sadihanti sma tan nishchaya sampadakatvad. Now the great sadhakas in the past, like Nachiketa, went to Yamaraj for a dialogue. A lot of these people who had dialogues with superior beings. Indraji once went to Prajapati along with Birochana, Rakshasa Raja. Devaraja, Rakshasa, both went. Brahmadi cheated them, saying, go see your face in the water. They were wearing beautiful golden and diamond studded jewelry, and he said, that is you, that is Atma. And Birochana was very happy. He said, now I'm going to preach this dharma to all my friends, Dehatma Buddhi, materialism. So most likely he went and settled in Europe and America. Europe most likely went there. Whereas Indraji went a distance, and then he said, no, no, he cheated me. Because when, I'm not well sometimes, this body falls sick, and then I may be blind, and I'm going to, this body is not all the time perfect. How can this be Atma? It's Anitya. Return said, did you cheat me, sir? Is it Atma? He says, okay, thanks, you came back. Now, 36 years of meditation, go do it. Then he was engaged in 36 years of meditation, 32 years. And finally, another 5. He took 101 years to know what is Atma. So, this is what is mentioned. Yadva, then like you had Sanat Kumara and Naradaji, they also had a sort of interaction where Naradji was boasting about what he knows. He mentions, I have studied this and that. And Sanat Kumar smiled and says, Nama Eva, these are only names. You don't know the secret. So these kinds of dialogues or interactions, like Swetaketu and his father. So all these are there. Jigyasavha sandhihanti sma tan nishchaya sampadakatvat. And these Mahavakyas give you certainty about what's the meaning of Atma Tattva. Yadva, otherwise. Anyasam brahmatmekya surupa prakatana पराणाम अपि भिन्नार्थतया भासमानानाम उपनिषदाम एकवाक्यता संपादकत्वात्. See, this is the beauty of their prose, very rich. There is something called ekavakyata in our Vedic tradition. What is ekavakyata? Ekavakyata is ekartha pratipadakatvam. So in Vyakarana in Sanskrit, wherever you have a word, that is one sentence. Ekting vakyam. So tinganta, you just need one tinganta word, and then that, like saha patati kridati cha. Saha patati one vakya, saha kridati another vakya. He plays and studies and dances. The Sanskrit grammarian would say that these are 3 sentences because there are 3 verbs. So you have a subject and you have a predicate. There's a verb. Fine, that makes a vakya. Veda says ekartha pratipadaka, you can have 500 sentences. Of course, in English, you have a subject, you have a predicate, and the predicate, you have a kriya and karma, right? Object, and there is some kriya, some verb, and all that there. But in Vedas, it's ekartha pratipadakatva, eka artha pratipadakatva. They're pointing at something, one artha, one injunction, one vidhi. There could be 500 sentences, makes no difference. That is one vakya. Now, what is he trying to say here? These Upanishads and the Vedantic texts are so many, and so many sentences. But there is one ekartha pratipadakatva. What are the central messages of all these Upanishads? Long discourses. That is what is summarized and presented to us in capsule form in these Mahavakyas. That's what he's trying to say. Yadava kriyakaraka phalaveda sankula sakantakam karmani utsrujya atmagyana arama vihara upakaraka sannyasa purvaka brahma nishta pravesanaya anugyapa Anugyapatra itatvat. This is another. Why these Mahavakyas? They are stepping stone for your sadhana to Brahma Jnana. How do they happen? Karmani utsrujya. So you renounce your karmas. Why? Because I have studied. I have understood Jiva Srushti is here. It's not so important. All the karmas are also here. Tyajya. Then you want Sarva Karma Sannyasa, 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Then what do you want? Atma Jnana. So you want to get into this. So then what do you leave behind? Arama, Vihara, Upakaraka, Sannyasa. Then you want to renounce and then you go to Guru Upashadana. Brahma Nishta Pravesha. Then you want to get into this. Shravana Manana Nididhyasana. You want to enter into Jnana Yoga. Pravesanaya. In order to enter Anugya Patraitatva, then these sentences will actually give you a kind of a Google map in your hands and give you a sense of Disha Nirdesh, a kind of sense of direction to move ahead. Vastutaha Nirdishta Hetu Samadaya Rupa Dharma Pugam Eva Nidanam Etesam Mahatveti Pratibhati. And then finally saying, Pugam here is the betel nuts which are given as kind of gifts. Nirdishta hetu samudaya rupa dharma pugameva. So, there's so many things I've mentioned. You put them together. These Mahavakyas are kind of small capsules who sort of capture all these importance which we just discussed in those short sentences. And now we are entering into the main thing, okay? And I would try to share that page and look at the Aitari Upanishad. Pragyanam Brahmeti Vakyartha Vicharaha. So there is 4 Mahavakyas. One is Rig Veda, Pragyanam Brahma. Aham Brahmasmi elsewhere, they will go. And Tattvamasi is, Tattvamasi is in the Chandogya Upanishad Veda. Aham Brahmasmi, Pragyanam Brahma, and Aham Brahmasmi. So these are the 4 sentences. Yeah. So here we are discussing Pragya, Ayam Atma Brahma. That is the other one. So these are the 4 sentences mentioned. Tesa Madhye Prathamataha Aitiriya Antaragatasya, which is there in the Aitiriya Upanishad, Pragyanam Brahmeti Mahavakyasya Artham. So what is the meaning? What it wanted to convey? Pratipada ishuhu Bhakyartha Jnanasya. Pratipipada ishuhu. You want to explain this. You want to do pratipadana, and you are you are sort of an aspiring student or a teacher. Jnanasya padartha jnana purvakatvat. Now, how do you do it unless you know padartha jnana? You first have to have what exactly it means. Pragyana savda. Tad ghataka pragyana padartha. Pragyanam brahma. You want to explain it. First, you have to understand what is that prakyana. Then you have to understand what does it mean to say Brahman. Then you do Anvaya and have Vakyartha Jnana. Nishchaya iti eteriya shrutim arthataha patati yena iti. So, yena means by which you know, you do, you see everything. That is what? That is pragyana. That is that pure consciousness. येनेक्ष्यते शृणोतीदं जिघ्रति व्याकरोति च स्वाद्वा स्वादु विजानाति तत्प्रज्ञानमुदीरितं येन इक्ष्यते येन पश्यति you see शृणोति and you hear idam jigrati and then You can smell, vyakaroti, whatever you see and you speak or whatever. Swadu aswadu. Then you have the rasana indriya, whether it is tasty or it is not tasty, whether it is sweet or it's bitter. Bijanati, Tat pragyanam, that is verily consciousness. So, what is he doing? He's shifting the locus of our attention from the sense organs to the pure consciousness, the Chidabhasa, or Pratyak Chaitanya, lying behind it. See, that is pragyanam Brahma. So, first, like you have Tattvamasi. So, in Tattvamasi, what they say? Tat is that Vachyartha is Ishvara. Lakshar, the intended meaning is that pure consciousness, Suddha Brahma. Tvam, Jiva, Vachyartha, exactly directly referring. But Tvam means is not you, the body mind complex, but is the consciousness which is underlying this body mind complex. And the conscious which pervades you and underlies your reality, and the pure consciousness which underlies the reality called Ishvara is one reality. It's all pervading, therefore it cannot be two. Ekam eva advitiyam, that's one. So then this one thing, how it appears is Ishvara and Jiva. How it appears is Devata and Jaksha Rakshasa and human beings and animals and birds with all upadhis based on our Purva Papa Punyas. I don't want to get into this particular, okay, we can do a couple of sentences, but I don't want to sort of not properly do justice. So we would stop here. We would just let's look at some of the introductory statements and we will do it properly next class. Brahmavadinaha mumukshavaha, those who are Brahmavadin mumukshus, they want liberation. Parishadi tattvam vicharam kurvantaha, and then there's a meeting, they're having a seminar. Atmana swarupam prati mitho aprichan, they're asking each other, koyam atma iti vayam upasmahe katarha sa atmeti, and how do we know what is that Atma? How do we meditate on it? Vidyate hi tatra prasnavakasha. And there is definitely a context in which this question is very relevant. Tathahi. And then we also know Nitya Suddha Buddha Mukta Swabhavaha Nirupadhiga Atmeti. Then what is that Atma is Sopadhiga Nirupadhiga. Suddha Brahman is Nitya Suddha Buddha Mukta Swabhavaha Nirupadhiga. No adjuncts, no definitions, no limitations. Free from all limitations and all restrictions. Atma. Ichi Nigamanta Vakyir Vadhyate. Nigama and Agama. Agama is all the Puranas, and Nigama generally, there are two ways to look at it, by the way. So one is that whatever Lord Shiva tells Parvati, that's called Agama, and what Parvati tells Lord Shiva is called Nigama. That's one way in the Tantric tradition. But here, Nigama means the Upanishads, and Agama means all the Puranas. So Agamas are Paurushya, Nigamas are Apaurushya. Ko ayam Atmiti, sorry, Nigamanta is Vedanta. Nigamanta Vakyehi, these Mahavakyas bodhyate. Pratidinam anubhuyate. Asmat pratyaya gochara chakshuradi indriya upadhi karya karana sankirnam kaschi chetanatmaka atma avidhanaha. Now, we've just seen the timeline. I don't want to push through it, and we'll resume exactly here when we meet again on Thursday. I'm just stopping here, and then we will do the Santi Mantras. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Tat Sat. Have a very good weekend, and we'll meet again on Thursday. Thank you.